During a fight, my girlfriend posted on Facebook asking for 100 likes to end our relationship. When her post hit 99, I quietly added the last one myself, giving her exactly what she wanted. That was the moment I stopped chasing, stopped texting, stopped caring. For 7 years, she had me completely under her control with one simple threat. Every time we argued, she would say that 3 days of silence meant we were broken up, and every single time, I would break first. I would apologize, make grand gestures, do whatever it took to win her back. That pattern defined our entire relationship until last weekend, when everything finally became clear. I had spent hours preparing all her favorite dishes, setting the table perfectly, lighting candles, creating the kind of romantic evening I thought she deserved. But she never showed up. After waiting in silence for what felt like forever, I mechanically opened social media and navigated to a page I had checked too many times before. It belonged to Leo, her first love from middle school. His latest post made my stomach turn. He wrote about how someone special had dropped everything, including her boyfriend, just to come massage his sore shoulder. He praised this admirable quality of putting friends before romance. The photo showed her on his couch, his head resting in her lap, his face uncomfortably close to her inner thigh as she worked on his arm. Something inside me shifted in that moment. I didn't break down like I usually did. I didn't call her crying or start an angry confrontation. Instead, I calmly liked the post, sent her a brief text saying we were done, and made the decision to go home for the arranged marriage my family had been suggesting for years. My breakup message received no response from her, which should have told me everything I needed to know. But it was Leo who decided to send me a video later that night, and watching it destroyed whatever remained of my illusions about our relationship.
The video showed a private room at a noisy bar where her friends were gathered around laughing. One of them asked how she felt about me finally having the nerve to break up with her after 7 years of devotion. She was casually slicing into a mango cheesecake as she responded with complete dismissal in her voice. She said I was just throwing a tantrum, trying to guilt her into coming back. She admitted she had actually been planning to return after finishing Leo's massage, but my attitude made her want to teach me a lesson by ignoring me for a few days. Then she held up a piece of that cake to Leo's mouth, asking him to try this new dessert from the bakery, completely at ease with the intimate gesture. Her friends started teasing, suggesting she should just break up with me since I was merely a stand-in anyway, now that the real deal had returned. They asked if she and Leo were finally going to get together. She didn't answer directly, just stared at Leo with this intense, hopeful gaze that I had never seen her direct at me in 7 years. Leo played it off, acting surprised and saying they were just good friends, nothing more. He even tapped her nose playfully and told her she needed to patch things up with her boyfriend or he would never be able to clear his name. The light in her eyes dimmed at his deflection, but she tried to maintain her confidence, saying that all she had to do was crook her finger and I would come running back. I watched that entire video feeling completely numb. I had already made my decision to move on, but my heart still ached with a bitter pain that I couldn't quite shake. After all, she was the girl I had fallen for at first sight during our freshman year at college. I had loved her for 7 complete years of my life, through every season and every challenge. The memories of our beginning played through my mind like a film I couldn't pause. I confessed my feelings to her during Thanksgiving of our freshman year at college. I knew she was the beautiful, aloof girl on campus who had coldly rejected countless guys before me. My confession was really just a way of making sure I had no regrets, because I never actually expected her to say yes. But under the moonlight that night, she studied my face for what felt like an eternity, and then she suddenly broke into this radiant smile and nodded, agreeing to be my girlfriend and saying we should see what the future held. I genuinely thought I would remember the thrill and beauty of that moment forever, that it would remain the happiest memory of my entire life.
That perfect memory lasted until one night when we were kissing passionately and she murmured a name, but it wasn't my name. She said Leo. I froze completely, every muscle in my body going rigid. That was the first time we gave each other the silent treatment, and it lasted 3 agonizing days. When she finally showed up at my door with a cupcake to apologize, she explained that he was just a guy she used to have a crush on, nothing more than that. Seeing the dark circles under her eyes from not sleeping, seeing how genuinely sorry she seemed, I softened and we reconciled. Back then, I was confident that Leo wouldn't come between us because he was just her first love, the one that got away when she was young and naive. He represented a past that had never even properly started. I was her actual boyfriend, her present reality, and I believed I would be her future as well. That confidence carried me through our 4 years of college, where I loved her with everything I had, holding nothing back. After graduation, I followed her to an unfamiliar city, even cutting ties with my own family to do so because they disapproved of my decision. They thought I was throwing my life away for a girl who didn't appreciate me. She was good to me during those years, at least in the ways I could see at the time. She would be the first to buy new items from the trendy bakery everyone loved, always bringing me treats before I even knew they existed. She would gently and patiently blow dry my hair after my showers and carefully iron my shirts for work each morning. Her anniversary gifts were always thoughtful items that I genuinely enjoyed. There were no flowery, romantic words between us, but our daily life was filled with a quiet, comfortable warmth that felt like home. I genuinely believed we would transition smoothly from college sweethearts to husband and wife, spending the rest of our lives building something beautiful together.
That belief lasted until 6 months ago, when Leo moved back from abroad, where he had been studying and working. When he casually remarked upon meeting me that she had really found herself a boyfriend who looked like him, the truth began tearing me apart, piece by cruel piece. I started understanding that she had only said yes to me initially to compensate for the regret of never being with Leo when she had the chance. The bakery cakes she always bought were actually his favorites, not mine. All the thoughtful gestures she performed, all the caring acts that I thought showed her love for me, were really just things he had once mentioned wanting in a future girlfriend. She was using me as a substitute to ease her loneliness, while simultaneously practicing on me to become the perfect woman for him when he eventually decided he wanted her. I remembered something she had said during a particularly tender moment between us. She told me we should get married on our 7th anniversary, promising that since I had left my home and family for her, she would spend every Thanksgiving with me from that point forward. This particular Thanksgiving marked exactly 7 years since we first got together, since that magical moment under the moonlight when she agreed to be mine. But clearly she had forgotten all about her promise, forgotten about the significance of the date, forgotten about me entirely. Maybe it was better that she forgot, I thought, since I was going home for an arranged marriage anyway. The clock struck midnight, and she still wasn't home. In the past, a situation like this would have tormented me, leaving me unable to sleep even a single wink as I imagined every possible scenario. But that particular night, I slept surprisingly well, better than I had in months. I guess letting go of someone who isn't worth your time is actually a way of setting yourself free from unnecessary pain. Early the next morning, I was woken by sounds coming from the kitchen, which was unusual since she rarely got up before me. She was standing there wearing an apron, her slender arms working a spatula as she carefully reheated all the dishes from the night before. She announced that she was making up for missing Thanksgiving, then tasted a piece of the sweet and sour pork directly off the spatula, commenting that my cooking was actually pretty good. I stared at her in surprise because she had always been meticulous about her lifestyle habits and health. She never ate leftovers under any circumstances, claiming they were unhealthy and beneath her standards. She looked up at me, waiting for my reaction, and I realized this exception to her rigid rule was her way of placating me after standing me up. She was waiting for me to take the olive branch she was offering, to fall back into our usual pattern. In the past, this gesture absolutely would have worked on me.
I would have been so grateful for this small sign of effort that I would have immediately forgiven everything. But something fundamental had changed inside me, and I just shook my head, telling her not to bother making up for Thanksgiving and that there was certainly no need to try to win me back. Her brow furrowed in confusion and slight annoyance. She turned away, retrieved a slice of cake from the refrigerator, and pushed it toward me, announcing it was my favorite from the trendy bakery, and that it was their newest creation. I looked down at that leftover slice of cake covered in bright mango pieces and felt a sharp sting pierce through my heart. The truth that I had been avoiding for so long suddenly became crystal clear. I don't even particularly like sweets. What I had always found sweet wasn't the desserts themselves, but rather the gesture behind them, the thought that she was thinking of me. But after 7 complete years together, she knew every single one of Leo's preferences by heart, could recite them like a memorized poem. Yet she couldn't even remember that I'm severely allergic to mangoes, that eating this cake could actually send me to the hospital.
I sat there in silence as this realization fully dawned on me, understanding just how worthless these 7 years had truly been. Her patience was clearly wearing thin as I failed to respond with gratitude. She said that was enough, that she had given me plenty of chances to back down gracefully. She mentioned that if Leo hadn't convinced her to try reconciling, she wouldn't have come back to make up this soon. Then she added firmly that I should never dare mention breaking up ever again. So that was the real truth. Even this half-hearted attempt to patch things up was actually for Leo's sake, done at his suggestion, rather than from any genuine desire of her own. I told her slowly and clearly that I was completely serious, that I genuinely wanted to break up with her, and that I was going home to get married to someone else. The rest of what I was trying to explain was abruptly cut off by her phone ringing with the custom ringtone she had set specifically for him. She answered immediately, her voice instantly softening as a genuine smile lit up her entire face in a way I rarely saw directed at me. She agreed to whatever he was asking and said she was on her way. After hanging up, her expression reverted to its usual cool indifference toward me. She stated that Leo needed her for something and she had to go right away. Just like always, she turned and walked out without waiting for me to reply or finish what I was saying. But this time was different, because I didn't watch her leave. I didn't stand at the window tracking her figure as she walked away. I simply turned back to my own life. With nothing else to do during the long holiday weekend, I decided to go into the office and work. I figured I could leave for good once I officially resigned after the holiday ended, and getting my files organized early would make the eventual handover process much smoother and more professional.
I worked until evening, completely absorbed in organizing years of projects and notes. When I finally left the office, I headed straight for a trendy restaurant nearby that had become famous on social media. Besides having genuinely great reviews for the food, it was rumored that couples who took a photograph together there were destined to last forever. I had tried to bring her to this place several times over the years, but she always had some excuse for why we couldn't go. Now, standing on the verge of leaving the city forever, I decided to finally go on my own and enjoy the experience I had been denied. I never expected to see them the absolute moment I walked through the door. She and Leo were sitting side by side at a corner table, nestled close together in a way that spoke of intimate comfort. The table was completely covered with spicy dishes and seafood, all the things he loved but she supposedly couldn't eat. She had always told me she couldn't handle spicy food or seafood, that they made her sick. I had spent years carefully accommodating her supposed dietary restrictions, always making sure restaurants had bland options available. But it turned out she had someone she was willing to accommodate too, someone worth suffering through discomfort for. Neither of them noticed me standing there. He laughed as he fed her a piece of spicy chicken that he had just taken a bite of himself, his fingers lingering for a moment against the corner of her mouth and a gesture far too intimate for mere friendship. A slow blush crept across her face, coloring her cheeks in a way I had never witnessed in all our years together. In my memory, she had always been as cool and distant as the moon, untouchable and emotionally reserved. It turned out that even at 25 years old, she could still blush with all the shyness of a first crush, but only for the person she truly loved deep in her heart. She asked him if they could take a photograph together, trying to sound casual, but her eyes betraying her nervousness and desperate hope for his agreement. Leo didn't answer directly. He just smiled mysteriously and gave her a little teasing push. Then suddenly, his head snapped up, and his eyes met mine across the restaurant. He had a distinct smirk on his face, like someone watching an entertaining show, clearly waiting for me to lose control the way I always had in the past. And I had lost control so many times over their relationship that it had become almost routine.
On Valentine's Day one year, he had called her away from our plans because he claimed he didn't feel like finishing a work presentation and wanted her to complete it for him instead. When I was hospitalized with severe pneumonia, struggling to breathe properly, he said he was feeling emotionally down, so she chose to stay with him for comfort rather than visit me in my hospital room. Late one night, she had rushed out in a complete panic to find him just because he was unusually slow to reply to her text messages. They ended up drinking wine and talking all night, and she explained it away as just what friends do, nothing inappropriate about it at all. I had screamed at her over these incidents. I had begged her to choose me without a shred of dignity remaining. But her response was always the same cold dismissal, telling me not to be so dramatic and accusing me of being controlling and insecure. She had made every possible excuse to avoid coming to this restaurant with me over the years, and now I finally understood why with perfect clarity. The person she wanted to take that special romantic photograph with, the person she wanted to create that lasting memory with, had never been me at all. A realization like that would have completely shattered the old version of me into a million pieces. But I had learned something crucial over these past few weeks. The person who doesn't genuinely care about you cannot see your pain as real. They only see you as being loud and unreasonable and difficult. I looked at them calmly and asked if they needed someone to take their picture for them, my voice completely even and unbothered. She froze, a flicker of embarrassment crossing her features before quickly transforming into defensive anger. She demanded to know if I was following them, what my sarcastic attitude was about. She reminded me that I was the one who had thrown a fit and broken up with her, that I had ignored her when she tried to make things right. She insisted she was just having dinner with an old friend, and asked if there was any problem with that, if I had any idea how suffocating my behavior was, how it just pushed her further and further away. She rarely ever spoke that many words to me at once in normal circumstances. It wasn't because she was nervous or because she cared about my feelings. It was purely because she had a guilty conscience about what I had witnessed.
I told her flatly that it didn't matter anymore, that I was simply there to eat dinner by myself. I added for complete clarity that we were broken up, and whatever the two of them chose to do together was absolutely none of my business anymore. Leo raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by my unexpected calm reaction. He spoke slowly and deliberately, explaining that he had mentioned not feeling well today, which was the only reason she had spent the entire day with him. He insisted I shouldn't get the wrong idea because they were genuinely just friends and nothing more. His eyes were filled with a smugness he couldn't quite hide despite his innocent words. I never used to fully understand why he spent so much time and energy stringing her along if he genuinely had no intention of ever being with her romantically. But it didn't matter to me anymore. I had absolutely no interest in figuring out his psychology or motivations. I ignored both of them completely, found an empty table with my back deliberately turned to them, and calmly opened the menu to order my meal. In the past, seeing something like what I had just witnessed would have sent me storming out of that restaurant in a rage, ruining my own evening and probably the rest of my week. But I hadn't done anything wrong. I was simply there to finally try a meal I had been genuinely looking forward to experiencing. I ordered a complete feast for myself, choosing all the things I personally love to eat without having to accommodate anyone else's preferences or restrictions for once. As the spicy, aromatic dishes arrived one by one, I felt this profound wave of relief wash over me. I was proud that I hadn't let other people ruin what should have been a good experience. The story of how everything finally ended is almost too dramatic to believe, but it taught me the most important lesson of my entire life. After she lost her job trying to protect Leo from the consequences of his own failures and lies, after he revealed himself to be nothing more than a manipulative fraud who had used her devotion for his own gain, she tried one final time to see me. I agreed to meet her for closure because 7 years together deserved at least a proper goodbye, even if it was painfully overdue.
She asked me the question that had probably been haunting her. If Leo had never come back into the picture, would I have married her? I took a sip of my coffee, tasting the bitterness with its sweet aftertaste, and I answered her honestly. Yes, I would have married her. Even after Leo returned, if she had chosen me, clearly and completely, the answer still would have been yes. But I told her there are no what-ifs in real life, no way to go back and make different choices. My voice was calm because I had truly, finally let her go. She seemed surprised by my direct honesty, and her eyes immediately welled up with tears she tried to blink away. Her voice was trembling as she confessed that she thought she had fallen in love with me a long time ago, but she had been too blind and stubborn to recognize it. She said losing me was her biggest regret, and that she was genuinely sorry for everything. She promised she wouldn't bother me again. Then she stood up abruptly and walked away quickly, her shoulders shaking with the sobs she was trying to suppress. I knew she probably did regret her choices, at least in that moment of loss and clarity. But some things simply cannot be undone, no matter how much we wish otherwise. This was the price she had to pay for her years of indecision, for keeping me as her safety net, while chasing someone who would never truly want her. The chapter of my life with her was finally, completely, permanently closed. A year later, I married Isabella, the woman my family had wanted me to meet all along. At our wedding, surrounded by friends and family, someone asked if we were truly happy. Isabella looked directly into my eyes with complete sincerity and smiled. She said she had married the boy with the long eyelashes who looked like he walked straight out of a storybook, the one who had given her a piece of candy when she was just 5 years old. She had married the only man she had ever loved in her entire life. Of course she was happy. I couldn't hide my complete surprise at this revelation. All those years ago when she had mentioned in an interview that she liked men with long eyelashes, she had been talking about me all along, waiting patiently for me to be ready. I asked why she had never told me sooner, why she had let me suffer through 7 years with the wrong person. She explained she cared too much about me, that she was terrified if I confessed her feelings and I rejected her, we wouldn't even be able to remain friends. But everything had worked out exactly as it should have.
She told me that from that moment forward, she wanted to spend every single moment of every single day with me. Amidst the applause and celebration, we kissed, and it was a long, genuinely sweet kiss that promised a future built on real love, rather than being someone's second choice. Sometimes you have to lose yourself in the wrong relationship to fully appreciate finding yourself in the right one. Sometimes being someone's substitute is exactly what you need to experience to understand your own worth. And sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is simply walk away from someone who will never see you as their first choice, their only choice, their everything. That's my story. That's how I went from being a desperate substitute to finding my own self-worth. And if you're watching this while stuck in a relationship where you're always second best, where you're always the backup plan, I hope my story gives you the courage to finally choose yourself.